Are you thinking of moving to the Seattle area and you want to learn all about the most walkable suburbs of Seattle? Well, this video, we're going to talk about the most walkable suburbs in Seattle. Hey everybody, my name is Tova Williamson. I am a local real estate agent in the Seattle metro area. And on this channel, I shoot tons of videos of what it's like to live in the Seattle area. So if those are videos you want more of, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Click that little bell so you'll be notified every time a new video comes on. So we get reach outs all the time from people wanting to move here, learn more about the area. We absolutely love hearing from you, but we can't help unless you reach out to us. So give us a call, email, text. We got your back when you're moving to Seattle. So this video, I'm going to talk about the most walkable suburbs in Seattle. It's pretty well known that Seattle itself is a pretty walkable area, but not everybody's really down for that city life. And so just looking into some suburbs that are a little bit smaller, but still have that like walkable feel. So we're going to jump in. This is not by any means an exhaustive list. There's tons and tons of suburbs in the area, and tons of them have their own little downtown and walkable, but I tried to just kind of find ones that are northeast, southwest, kind of doing a whole loop around just to give you an idea of some of the walkable suburbs, just doing a whole circle around the city. So the first one we're going to talk about is Kirkland, Washington. So pull it up on a map here. This is northeast of Seattle. This is a suburb that's in the east side that you'll hear people talk about the east side of Seattle. So it's over here. It sits right on Lake Washington. So we've got downtown Seattle here. So Kirkland is just right up here. You got a Costco right there. What more can you want, right? So the downtown area is super, super cute. It's right on the water. There's a park right here. There's so much to do. It attracts a ton of walkers and bikers all along the path and joggers. You've got all sorts of stuff in that downtown area. You've got breweries, you've got a farmer's market in the summer on Wednesdays, June through September. So there's a couple of breweries down there. You've got gelato, grocery stores, Shake Shack. You've got all of your chains, some of the local chains, but then a lot of more like mom and pop places too. I mean, every type of food you would want for restaurants. You've got Greek, Mexican, burgers, pizza, seafood, all of it. So it's just a really fun area to be and to be downtown. The walk score, if you're ever curious about walk scores in Seattle, there's a website called Walk Score. And so you can go on there and type in either the zip code or the city or wherever, and it will give you a walk score. So Kirkland's walk score is 79 for downtown. So that's very walkable. It's really great area to walk around. There's a bunch of apartments down there that they've been building. There's a bunch of condos down there. So you can absolutely just live in the downtown area and have that downtown walking urban feel, but it still like kind of has a small town feel. It's not like big city. So it's a nice in between. Once you get a little further out from the downtown, there's more like just neighborhoody houses with single family homes lined up, and they're a little bit like closer together than some of the more suburban area. And Kirkland, when you start getting out from the downtown, then you're going to have a little bit bigger yards and a little bit more like kind of the little pre-planned communities where it's like, Kirkland Hills or something, and you go in and it's the little HOA community. So you get a mix, but the downtown area has plenty of housing where you can still have that like walkable urban lifestyle. The population of Kirkland is about 100,000 people. So it's definitely a larger suburb. Like that's a pretty good number, 100,000 people. So you definitely feel still very much like city life in there. It's not a place where you're going to necessarily go and just get away from people and never see people. It's still a pretty large suburb area. The median home price in Kirkland is 1.2 million. So it's definitely not a cheap place to live. It's gotten very, very popular over the past few years, especially during COVID. The whole east side just blew up even more than it already has been. So prices have just gone crazy there. You can definitely find condos and smaller houses for less, but Kirkland, you're looking for a single family home, you're going to be in the millions for sure. School district rating, that's one of the reasons that a lot of people like Kirkland, is it gets an A+ for schools. According to the website niche.com, they rate all the different schools. So Kirkland gets an A+. That's a big draw for people to come there. And hence then that brings up the home prices because people want to move there. The schools are really desirable. So it's just become a very, very desirable place to live. The commute to downtown Seattle is about 20 to 40 minutes. It's about 10 miles. I'm going to pull the map up again just to show you. If you're working in downtown Seattle and need to commute, that's kind of the one sticky, and 20 minutes is like a real good day and you have no traffic and you can like go above the speed limit. I'd say, 30 to 40 is more common and even longer if there's an accident. But Kirkland sits right up here with 405 running north and south through it. So if you're getting into Seattle, you've got to cross a bridge. So you're going to take 405. You've got 520 bridge, which is tolled. It is a toll bridge. You can avoid that toll, go down to I-90, just depending on where you would be working in Seattle. It might make more sense to take I-90, but 520 is tolled. So if you go that route, you will definitely want to get a good to go pass. It's a little like sticker that you put in your window and the cameras just scan it for the toll and you get a discount versus like doing the pay by mail tolls. So if you're going to be commuting and taking that 520, definitely get that good to go pass. And I think sometimes with the toll, a lot of people don't take that bridge to try to avoid the toll and they take I-90. So sometimes the traffic isn't as bad on 520. It's not all the time, but sometimes you can avoid a little bit of traffic if you take 520 versus I-90. So that's number one. We've got Kirkland. The second one I'm going to talk about is Edmonds. So Edmonds is another really cute, charming little downtown area. It's north of Seattle and it sits on the water as well, but not Lake Washington. It sits actually on like Puget Sound saltwater. So it's right here. Edmonds, you've got downtown Seattle here. So you go on up. But the downtown Edmonds just sits again right on the water. So it's just really, really beautiful to go down, hang out at this park, Brackett's Landing, and there's a ferry terminal here. So if you want to go over to the peninsula for vacation, like weekend camping and getaways, you're just a quick ferry ride over. And it's just really peaceful to sit like at the park and just stare out and watch the ferries go by. I don't know, there's something about it that's just like really calming to me. So it's just a really nice downtown that sits mostly around here. And then up here, you'll see some more. So downtown Edmonds, it's a mix of like historical and newer things too. So there's a lot of cool old historical buildings that really just adds to the charm of Edmonds. Again, they've got tons and tons of restaurants and shops downtown. You can just kind of walk around and meander through. They've got a distillery that makes gin. So if you're into gin, that's a good place to check out. They've got a couple different breweries. And then again, they have another good mix of just more casual, like walk-in dining places, and then more like upscale, more just like fancier restaurants too. So it's a great little downtown. There's a ton of cute shops and restaurants. If anyone's familiar with Rick Steves, he's like a travel guru that's on PBS. He's actually from Edmonds. So just a little bit of a local celebrity, I guess. You might run into him when you're downtown. Edmonds, they do have a farmer's market on Saturdays, and that goes from May to October too. So you can go walk around on the weekends, get some produce and veggies, and just really scope it out. And one thing to note too, when you look at that map, Edmonds it's down on the water, and then the houses, like it's a hill. So you can get some really nice houses that are like further up on the hill with just amazing views of Puget Sound. Again, those homes aren't necessarily going to be cheap, but you can really find some beautiful, beautiful view homes in Edmonds. So Edmonds population, they're about 42,000 people. So definitely smaller absolutely than Kirkland before, and it has a little bit more of that small town vibe, but again still has everything that you need there. You're not going to feel like you're living in some tiny town and you have to like drive out to get everything that you need. You still have most of the daily things that you need in Edmonds. Median home price in Edmonds is about $786,000 for a single family home, so they're a little bit less than Kirkland. Again, you can find a lot of the downtown Edmonds has a lot of condos. You can find some really cool, like older condos with water views too, that just kind of sit right along the water right there. So you can definitely find things that are less than that, but for single family, you're looking at about 700,000 and up from there. The commute to downtown Seattle, it's a little bit longer. You're going to be 30 to 55 minutes. I-5 is not ideal. I mean, that just gets completely bogged down with traffic during rush hour. And then where Edmonds sits, I mean, you've got to drive in. If you're like living downtown Edmonds, you've got to drive a bit to get into I-5 to even get on the freeway. So you can take I-5, you've got 99 here. That is another option. 99 has a lot of lights though, so that's going to take a lot longer to get down there. They also have the Sounder train, which connects, I think that's the little train station right there. So it's the Sounder train that will take you into Seattle. It takes you down to King Street Station. So if you're working in downtown Seattle or kind of the southern downtown Seattle, that could be an option. It's a commuter train, so it definitely works like commuter hours. It's not like the light rail where you can just hop on any time of day. It's like morning and evening, and then that's it. So, but that can be an option if you don't want to sit in traffic all the time, is to take that Edmonds Sounder train. So the school district in Edmonds, it's the Edmonds School District. It gets a B+ on niche. So again, that's another positive where a lot of people want to move to that area because the schools are also good too. You not only get these like beautiful views for some parts of Edmonds, but then you have the really good schools too. So that just brings families to the area. And downtown Edmonds walk score, they get a 92, which is considered walker's paradise. So definitely if you want that walking lifestyle, but you don't want to be in a big city, downtown Edmonds is a really, really good spot because it's really cute and charming and fun and good and walkable, but still doesn't have that like big city feel necessarily. So the next town we're going to talk about is Sumner. So that is southeast of downtown Seattle. This is kind of a lesser known area. It's definitely a much smaller town, but it's really cute and charming. The downtown area, let's get down here to get to it. So it's just right down here. We've got Lake Tapps just to the east of it. So it's kind of almost more of a suburb to Tacoma. But it's a really small, cute little downtown area. You'll just see this little strip right here. It's not huge. It's nothing like Edmonds or Kirkland in size, but it's just really cute, like kind of that idyllic main street that you think about in like old movies or something. It's just a really cute little downtown. It's small. It's only about 8 blocks. So it's not like some huge suburban area, but it's someplace that if you still kind of want that downtown cute, charming vibe, and then to be able to go and get an older house that's further out and not see as many people, Sumner's a good kind of in between. So it's definitely more rural setting, small town. They are actually home to the Rhubarb Pie Festival. Every summer it's like rhubarb days and you go and like taste pies, and it's all this like this whole festival. So it's kind of a really cute thing to go do during the summer. But the downtown area, they have tons of cute little boutiques and antique shops and coffee. There's a couple cafes, burgers, coffee shops. They don't have a farmer's market in Sumner. You got to go to Puyallup, which is another neighboring town just kind of to the south of it. It's a little bit bigger. But Sumner, for, just a smaller little kind of off the beaten path area, could be a good option. The population's about 10,000 people, 10 to 11,000 people. So definitely much, much smaller than some of the other suburbs. So you're definitely like that small town vibe here for sure. Medium home price is about 500,000. So again, way less expensive than some of the other suburbs that we see. Your money goes a lot farther here. Here in Sumner, you're mostly looking at single family homes. There's not a ton of like condos and apartments necessarily. It's mostly single family, and a lot of the homes are kind of like more old historic. You can find some really cool old like charming houses in the Sumner area, and that aren't a lot of money. I mean, in Seattle, those type of houses sell for like $1 million, where Sumner you get a lot more bang for your buck. The school district rating in Sumner is a B+, so they still get pretty good school ratings. They're part of the Sumner School District, so it's a good in between. The commute to downtown is rough. It's about 34 34 miles from downtown. So you're looking at about an hour to like an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. So if you're going to be having to commute into Seattle every single day, it might not be like the number one option for you. But if you're working remote maybe and don't need to go in the city as much and you're just wanting kind of more that small town feel, it could be a good option for you. The walk score in downtown Sumner is 72. So very walkable when you're downtown. Otherwise, it gets a little further spread out. But just to talk about the commute, I mean, you've got 167, which is a really small freeway, and it will get backed up if there's an accident. So, I mean, another option, if you don't want to drive into Seattle, you can come up, and there's the Sounder train that I talked about for Edmonds, also comes down to Tacoma. So you could catch it somewhere down around here, like park and ride and go up, but it's still going to be a pretty long commute. So maybe not daily commuter lifestyle, but if you're working remote, maybe can work from home, that could be an option, is in Sumner. So the next area that we're going to talk about is in actually Bainbridge Island. So Bainbridge Island sits just west of downtown. Bainbridge has become a very popular area over the last few years, especially with prices rising in Seattle. Then people are like, well, where can I go that's cheaper? Bainbridge Island is not as cheap anymore, but it's become a big spot for people to live and commute into Seattle. So it's just west here. And we're going to talk about Winslow, which is like a neighborhood in Bainbridge Island. Overall, Bainbridge Island is not very walkable at all, but this little downtown area right off the ferry terminal, which is called Winslow, is a good little walkable area. There's tons of little apartments that are being built there. They're making it more kind of urban and walkable in that area, and townhouses. Then you've got, if you look over to this side, there's a lot of country clubs. So there are a lot of houses over here too that you can, find. And then you're still pretty close to the downtown area. So it's right off the ferry terminal. You can literally like walk off the ferry onto Bainbridge and the Winslow downtown area. They've got grocery stores. They've got, you can see her Kids Discovery Museum. They've got a bunch of like toy shops, antique shops downstairs or downtown, ice cream, coffee shops, a ton of seafood restaurants down there. I think just because they're like right off the water, you get a lot of the seafood. So that's a big draw. One thing to keep in mind, Bainbridge is very touristy too, because it is like a ferry ride. A lot of people come when they're visiting Seattle, they come and take the ferry for the day and eat lunch in Bainbridge. So you can get a lot of that, like not just commuter traffic, but like tourist traffic too sometimes, which can be kind of frustrating if you're trying to get home after a long day of working. But Bainbridge has a farmer's market on Saturdays, April through November, right downtown area. So that's a really nice place to go during the summer, get your veggies. There's a bunch of farms and stuff like all throughout Bainbridge and like Kitsap County where Bainbridge is located. So there's pretty good farmers markets there too. The population for Winslow neighborhood is about 3,700. The population for the whole Bainbridge Island is about 24,000. So definitely like very small town feel. And once you get out of that downtown part of Bainbridge, like it gets really rural out there. Like there's just trees. And so it can be a nice in between where if you want that walkable downtown, but then you still want to kind of get away and not see people, it's definitely like the best of both worlds. You've got those two extremes. So it can be a good in-between for people. Medium home price in Bainbridge is 1.2 million. So again, not the cheapest place to live. Like I said, I mean, 5 years ago, the prices were way different and it just has like blown up ever since Seattle started getting more expensive. And then people were moving out to Bainbridge and realizing like, hey, it's only a ferry ride. It's not that far. You can get like these amazing views. It's like this quiet lifestyle. So Bainbridge has really, really gotten a lot more popular over the past several years, and thus the prices have gone up considerably. Bainbridge School District, they get an A+ on niche too. So that again, like helps just bring those prices up and bring that draw to the area. The schools are good. You get good views. It just has a lot of pros that people want to live in. So the commute to downtown is a 30-minute ferry ride. you're going to be spending more time than that though. Like you want to give yourself some time to get to the ferry terminal and then offload too. And it depends, like you can drive your car on the ferry. So if you're driving, you definitely want to get there early to make sure you get a car spot, because there are limited spots on the Bainbridge ferry. And like I said, more people have been moving out to the ferry or to the island. And so it's just gotten, that ferry can get really, really overcrowded. But if you're living in kind of the downtown area and then you're working in like downtown Seattle, you can just walk on the ferry too and not bring your car. And that will, you'll almost always get a spot on the ferry, because the walk on, there's way more like passenger spots versus car spots. So if you can make it more walkable, it's definitely a little bit easier. But otherwise, you're living that ferry life and you just like memorize those ferry schedules. They run about once every hour or so. So, and then just always kind of, the ferry life can be tough because sometimes there's a ferry breaks down or something happens or one gets delayed and then it's 30 minutes, or like Fridays in the summertime when a bunch of tourists are coming out to the islands for the weekend, like getting home on a Friday in the summer can be just like kind of a nightmare. So it's kind of that in between. If you're working remote, might be a better option. If you have like very, very flexible work hours, could be a little bit better for you. But the Bainbridge downtown is really, really charming and cute. It's a 65 for the walk score. So the next town we're going to talk about is Bothell. So Bothell is north, kind of northeast of downtown Seattle. It sits just kind of on the northern tip of Lake Washington, well, a little northeast. So here's Lake Washington. Bothell's right here. Bothell has seen a ton of growth over the past couple years. It's a good in between, like if two couple or like a couple moves to the area and one works in downtown Seattle and one works in downtown Bellevue, it's kind of like a perfect little sweet spot, because you can get down to Bellevue pretty easy and then Seattle pretty easy. So it's kind of this in between area. It hasn't always been the most exciting place. It's still growing and working. The downtown, they're really putting like a lot of money into the downtown area. A lot of new restaurants have opened up down there. They're doing a lot more like new construction townhouses and condos to really try to like vamp it up. So it's continuously changing. Like every time I go into Bothell, you're like, oh, there's a new little this or that. So it's really starting to grow into this cute little downtown, but it wasn't always like as exciting. It was mostly just like a suburb that didn't have much of a downtown, but they've been really kind of working on it. So you've got a ton down there. You've got coffee. You can see there's this McMenamins, which is, if you're familiar at all with McMenamins, they're based out of Oregon, I think. And they get like these old like schools or like old hotels or like old churches. They always find these really cool old buildings and they like take up shop in them, and they're a brewery and they make beer, and then they have all these activities. And so you can like stay in hotels and they do like movies, and it's just a cool thing that you'll see. There's quite a few in the area, and then they're out of Oregon too, but it's just kind of a cool little thing to have in the area, because they do a lot of events and stuff there. And yeah, there's a little hotel. So it's kind of a cool little thing. I don't know. So you've got that. They've got a couple different breweries around there, craft beer bars, there's restaurants, pizza, Mexican, kind of everything that you would want. A pretty good mix of different like casual dining, maybe a little bit more upscale too. So it's a pretty good mix. The population of Bothell is about 47,000 people. So again, kind of that in between, and Bothell's really growing a lot too. So I think you'll just start seeing more and more people moving to the area. Some parts of Bothell, like the downtown, is a little more concentrated, but Bothell's pretty big. And when you move like north of downtown, it gets a little more rural, and you're seeing a lot more like new construction housing going into some of those more spread out areas. So it's just growing a lot. We're going to still see a lot of growth and change, I think, in Bothell over the next few years. Median home prices in Bothell are 1.2 million, which this is like crazy, because Bothell was always like this less expensive place. And then now just over the last like 3-4 years, like since COVID, it's just like, it's blown up. It's just crazy to me that it's 1.2 million right now in Bothell, because it was always like 600,000 or something. It was a lot cheaper then. So definitely changed, definitely grown. A big reason is part of Bothel's still in the very desirable school district called North Shore School District, and it kind of bleeds into like Kirkland and the east side. And so that's been a big draw for people if they want those like east side really desirable schools, but then the prices are higher there. They're like, go to Bothell to still be in that school district, but then housing is a little bit cheaper. But as we see, it's like getting more comparable anyway. So it's not even that much cheaper anymore. Again, you can find condos, townhouses for less than 1.2, but single family, it's getting more and more expensive for sure. And you can find single family that are less than 1.2, but they might need like more updating or repairs, might be a little bit more rundown. The commute to downtown from Bothell is about 30 minutes to an hour, again, depending on traffic. The light rail doesn't go up there. There's some buses. There's not a ton of public transit up there. If you look at the map again, that's one thing with Bothell. If you're downtown, it's easy to hop on this 522 and then you can get into Seattle. But the further out you are in Bothell, and it kind of even stretches out here sometimes. And I mean, there's some areas in Bothell where it can take you a good 20 minutes to even get onto the freeway. And then once you're on the freeway, you're looking at like 30 plus minutes. So commute's not super great, but again, it can be a good in between if like one family member is working on the east side and one is working in Seattle, then it's like that good in between where each person is about the same distance from their work. So the walk score of downtown Bothell is 88, which is very walkable. Again, really good downtown area. The further out you get, definitely gets more suburban though, for sure. So the downtown is walkable, but once you get out of that downtown, it's suburban and like a lot of trees and bigger lots, and you can find like a lot more space than you can in Seattle in some parts of Bothell. So the last suburb that I'm going to talk about is Burien. So Burien is just south of Seattle. It's a little close to the airport, so that's kind of a draw for some people if they travel a lot. So it's just right down here, just kind of south of West Seattle. And they're downtown. They've really been, and you can see the airport right here too. So some parts of Burien, I mean, if you're over here in the western part, it's not as bad, but there's some areas that get a lot of airplane noise, so just to keep that in mind for people. But they're downtown, they're really pushing to make it like more vibrant and bringing a lot of new restaurants there. There's a bunch of little apartments and condos there, and then a lot of Burien too. You have some really great views of the water, so it's a good little same thing in between city. They've got art centers, they've got a heritage museum, the Seahurst Park right here, which is nearby, which is a really cool big park, and it's just like tons of waterfront like parts of the park, like waterfront property in the park. So it's just a really pretty place to go. But they've got a couple breweries in downtown Burien to go eat at. There's a ton of new little restaurants popping up all the time down there. It's really become kind of like a foodie, like heaven, foodie paradise, they call it, because there's just all these like new places coming there and creating these new restaurants. So it's kind of cool. Like if you're really into the food scene, Bremerton has no shortage of really good restaurants. They do have a farmer's market that's open all year, which is pretty rare in this area. Usually they like end during the winter, but this one goes all year on Thursdays. So it is close to SeaTac Airport, which is kind of, it can be like a pro and a con. It's good if you travel a lot, but sometimes depending on where you are in Burien, you can get some of that airplane noise too. But the population in Burien is about 51,000. So again, kind of in that in between. It's not like Kirkland where it's like this huge city, but it's still, it's not tiny either. It's got kind of that in between. So it's a pretty good size. The median home price in Burien is about $670,000. So definitely you get way more for your money down there. Obviously, if you're getting close to like waterfront or water view, those are going to run more, but you can find some really good homes in the like 600-700 range where it's not like $1 million plus, which we see in some of the other suburbs. The commute to downtown is pretty quick. It's about 11 miles. So it's about 20 to 40 minutes, again, depending on traffic. Let's pull up this map one more time. So there's a couple ways you can take I-5 to get into downtown, but it's kind of like out of the way. The easiest way is to take this 509 up, and then it gets you into Soto. You can cut over onto I-5 once you get up here if you want, or you just take the 99 in to downtown. Again, The 99 has a tunnel that goes downtown that is tolled. So if you do go that route, definitely get that good to go pass again. But one thing that's nice about Burien is one of the closer suburbs that we talked about. So it's not super far, but again, the light rail, if you do want to take the light rail, they have one in at the airport. So you could, and there's like International Boulevard. So you could, they do have park and ride. So you can just park and then ride up to the air or right up to downtown on the light rail. And the light rail from Burien's probably, I'd say like 30-40 minutes. So again, if you just don't need a car and you work downtown, that could be a good option. And then you're not having to deal with traffic as much. And then the walk score in downtown Burien is 88. So it's very walkable. Again, you can like live right in downtown Burien and walk around and have all the things that you need, or then you can live a little further out but still come right on into that walkable downtown, and it's still a small kind of quaint little downtown and not this big massive city like you have in Seattle. So those are some of the top walkable suburbs to Seattle. So if you're thinking of moving to the area, it can be really tough, especially if you don't know the surroundings and what it's like. So we love hearing from you. We want to hear from you, but we can't help unless you call. So give us a call, email, or text. We've got your back when you're moving to Seattle.